Guys, this is Dorian Day and welcome to Serum in Depth number 11. Today we're going to be going over how to create waveforms that loop well in Serum's noise oscillator. Now I've gone over a couple times so far how you can use Serum's noise oscillator as a sampler, as an additional oscillator, as a number of things, but if you don't use it in a way that's sensible, you're not going to get good results. So if we go into one of these noises, you can hear it loops well. Now, and what I mean by that is it just cycles through pretty much seamlessly, but if we go find this sound in the folder, AC Hunt. AC Hum 1. It's only a second long. And it cycles through on itself so that you can press a note and it just repeats. Now let's take a look at that noise in Wave Editor. So this is just an audio editor. Lets you do things that Ableton can't. So you can see here at the end on the right, the waveform ends pretty much on the line, this center line, which is 0 phase. Here it doesn't, but it's pretty close. We could quote unquote fix that, perhaps. Yeah, no. I've found that for whatever reason, I've had a hard time trying to get 0 phase edits on noise, but on oscillators it's pretty easy. But the important thing is that it's reasonably close to the center line so that you don't hear popping, and that it's that you don't have silence on either end so that it actually loops. Let's show an example of this, and then how to fix it. So if we go into Massive, create a 1 bar note, turn on white noise, and then don't have the MIDI note finish all the way to the end. Now I'm going to flatten it. So I just have the audio file. But there's this space at the end. If I put this into Serum right now, and you always have to restart Serum before your new noises will show up. You can hear as I hold it, there's a gap at the end. So we have to fix that. So I'm going to drag this audio file into Wave Editor. And whatever audio editor you use, you need to use snap to 0 cross, and that's basically where the line crosses the center line and switches phase from compression to refraction. Otherwise you get pops and clicks. So if we cut this, and basically I just got reasonably close, and snap to 0 cross got the rest. However, if you're not careful, there might be weird things going on. You won't get good results. So try and get as close as possible. And then cut. And then there's a perfect starting point right at 0 phase. And then at the end. And at the end, there's some wonkiness sometimes, at least in Wave Editor. I noticed Edison in Fruity Loops was pretty good at this kind of stuff when I used it. Now, just to begin, you don't have to be too precise. Just grab near the end and grab everything. But as you can see, Snap 2 Zero Cross messed with us. So I'm going to turn off Snap 2 and then use Shift and grab. All right, now cut. Zoom in. And fortunately, we got pretty much right on zero crossing, so this is a done file. But I'll show you how you might do it. So, Snap 2, zero cross. And on this end, it didn't grab to the point well. Sometimes it does weird things. I've noticed this more on noise than like oscillators or synth sounds. Something more musical. I'm not sure what that's about. So in these circumstances, you're just going to have to turn Snap 2 off and do your best, because as long as you're reasonably close, it's not that big of a deal. All right, and we hit save. Now, I edited this file directly, so we'll see what happens if I just move forward and then move back. And as you can hear, it reloaded the file and it's playing smoothly now. There's no stop at the end. And you can do this with pretty much any kind of noise or ambiance or anything you might want to put in here. You can hear some that they have. It's like air cans. Creepiness. But the important thing is when you put yours in, if you want it to loop like that you need to go through the process that we just did. And now we're going to do the same thing, but for synth samples, because I've talked at length about how you can use this also as a sampler. So I'm going to get another instance of Massive open. Just going to grab a C3. Grabbing C's, any C in any octave is convenient. Ideally, the closer to the register that you're going to be playing in. So a C that's close to your melody line, but it has Serum has a pretty good pitch shifting algorithm. When I used a piano sample, it transposed incredibly. But if you use C, then when you turn on the pitch tracking and the noise oscillator, you won't have to do many pitch changes right here or in the global setting, because it'll pretty much already be in tune with oscillators A and B in the sub, which is pretty convenient. So I just have this saw wave. I'm going to grab a little bit off the end so we can replicate the previous process. Freeze, flatten, crop. Okay, I'm going to edit the file. And I'm going to do similarly as I did before. I'm just going to cut off the ends and beginning so that we have a smooth waveform with no envelope. I didn't change the envelope beforehand before sampling. It might be a good idea to just put on full sustain so that you can have an audio file with no volume changes that you can then control inside of Serum. So this is just a rough cut. And then we zoom in. Okay. And So this is a pretty uniform waveform. It looks the same all the way through. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the start of the waveform meet where the end of the waveform would be. So I'm going to keep the top on this end. So I'm going to try and grab right here. Snap to 0 cross. Cut. Okay, so now we have the top, and now we have to go over here and grab the bottom, which is this section right here. Okay, didn't snap to the end. Cut that. So now we go up at the end, and we cycle right around. We're pretty close. Yeah, there's a bit of a jump there, so this looks pretty much correct. And then we save. Usually, if you save, it'll pop right back into Ableton, but for whatever reason, occasionally that doesn't work. So I'm going to just save it to the desktop. Normally edit and then save fixes this, but every once in a while it doesn't work 100% correctly. So how do we get that into Serum? Once again, menu, show Serum presets folders. Gonna grab that file from the desktop. Noise, saw, just give it a simple name. Put it into user oscillators, which is a folder I created. Then you have to restart Serum. Now when I just press any note, that's a C because that's where I sampled it. I probably should have normalized this file first. So let's go and do that. Grab noise saw, drag it back into Wave Editor, and normalize. And normalize brings up the volume level of the highest peak to 0 decibels. You can normalize to other volumes, but 0 decibels is the most common. Save. Let's see if it'll pop back in. Or actually, no, I guess it's already in Serum. Better turn on the volume. Back, forth. There, it's already much louder. So there you go. Now we have a saw wave we sampled out of Massive at C. And if I press any key, you can see down in the left-hand corner that we're at C. Now when I activate pitch tracking, the pitch tracking is done correctly. If you see we're at D, I'm holding D, C, C, G, G. And it sounds pretty good. Quick rule of thumb, like I said before, is try to keep the note you sample as close to your melody as possible. If you want something that's more flexible, it's better to use lower down notes because they contain all of the upper harmonics, so they're better replicated in the high end than a high end would be for the low end. And yeah, that takes care of that. The only other thing to mention, and it's a segue into the next Serum in depth, is that you don't need as much audio as we used. You can use a single cycle, and single cycle pretty much means you use one full cycle of the waveform. What will that look like? To us, that's from here to here, because this is where we start, and that's a repetition. So if we want, we could just cut this down. And now we have one single cycle of this waveform. And if I save it, well, that didn't work out too nicely. So as I was trying to figure out the solution to the problem that you saw me having at the end of the video, I came up with an alternative way of doing this, and something that's much more flexible, and we're going to go over that in the next video. Almost all of the information still pertains. We're just going to use a different program that is free, so it's going to be available to everyone on Mac, PC, and I think Linux. And then we're going to see how Serum expects these single cycle waveforms so that we can hopefully give it a better waveform to use. All right, thanks. See you in the next video.